This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Boy, oh boy, do we have a day ahead of us as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We got the Sony Open underway. We got huge news in college basketball, the divisional round of the National Football League coming up. Oh, and by the way, an NBA game that is about to tip off overseas in a matter of minutes. So if you're looking for action, that's actually where we're going to start here real quickly. The Orlando Magic taking on the Memphis Grizzlies in Berlin. First ever regular season NBA game in Germany, and a home camp coming for Berlin natives, the Wagners. Franz will be on the court. First game back for Orlando in more than a month, dealing with that ankle injury. No John Morant on the other side, who's missed 5 in a row with a calf. A number of injuries, though, on that side of things. How are you looking at it?
Yeah, good news or bad news. You and I both, without really talking to each other at all this morning, on the Orlando Magic here. This is going to be, I think, a faux home game for Orlando. Zach Cohen and I talked about this morning on Howard Handicappers, which is out wherever you get your podcasts. For those who don't know, Germany actually in the midst of a very strong stretch of basketball internationally. They won the FIBA World Cup. They won the Euro Cup as well, or Eurobasket, I believe is the name. So, and by the way, the Wagner brothers have been at the center of that, along with Dennis Schroeder. So I think they're going to get a very strong legion of support out there, a little bit of a home court advantage, if you will. Also, I mean, I don't know if it's a little too hardcore, but having a pair of guys that is kind of familiar with just the environment itself, navigating the city, doing those sort of things, anything that could really help you in this situation. On the other side, and by the way, you get Franz back, as you mentioned, that's a very big thing. And on the other side, you get Memphis Grizzlies who have John Morant chirping during shoot-around the day before. I mean, I don't know if we can roll this. You saw this the other day. He's getting into it with teammates during shoot-around. They're bickering back and forth. I mean, this whole thing has been an absolute nightmare. And while he's sitting here arguing and getting after teammates, he's buying houses in Miami with trade rumors that maybe that's at the top of his list. And can I just say, as a quick aside, which bothers me to a great extent, he wants to go to Miami, allegedly, where how many times have we brought this up with Miami? Do you remember the issue with Miami?
What?
It's that the offensive system that you complained about last year is there. It's what they're running. You got the guys fired, and now you want to go to Miami. The guy sucks, and I think everything around this Grizzlies team stinks. I'm sure they'll win by 20, having said all of that, but let's go. Yeah. Magic.
I'm with you. Like we said, I texted earlier and I said, okay, Magic -5 and Desmond Bane over 19.5. I'm going with the Bane revenge game here. Yep. He's been their lead scorer each of the last 2 games. See if we can get some points in this spot once again, too. But I wanted a day sweat with our early game here. We don't get a lot of stuff in this window outside from lower level college basketball every now and then. And today, obviously, the start of the Sony Open. But nice to get a little early action here. And like I said, so Bane over 19.5, the way I'm playing that, averaging last 2 games, 25 points on nearly 49% shooting. So rolling there. And I was looking at some of the stuff with the Grizzlies against teams with winning records. Lost 23 of their last 25 against teams over 500.
Yeah.
That surprised me a bit.
Yeah, look, they're like kind of a plucky team. They're well coached, and generally their roster is pretty good. And the front office does a great job of finding some talent, but they've been very injured. We actually just got news the other day that Zach Edey's going to be out for another extended amount of time. He'd been ailing already and on the sidelines, so I think it's also part of it. I mean, they've been dealing with so many injuries throughout the year that it's not just John Morant. And so when you take on you would assume to be good teams, especially over 500, there's probably a gap there that in some instances you can't make up.
Again, 5.5, the prevailing spread numbers we get set for tip-off. A little love to the under as well, down from 230.5 to as low as 227 in the market I see right now. And we are just a few minutes away now from tip-off, it appears, in Berlin. That said, we do have a lot more to get to here on the program, as I mentioned off the top. So let's kick this thing off like we always do. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
We have so many awesome guests that we will have on the program today, beginning in about 30 minutes with Nick Alberga, NHL betting and fantasy analyst, covers the Leafs, who are in town here in Vegas to face the Vegas Golden Knights. He's got plays on a handful of games today, as will our own VSiN hockey betting expert, Jonathan Davis, both of them in studio over the course of the next 2 hours. Then at 11:45, Nicole Auerbach, lead college football insider over at NBC Sports, going to join the program, talk through the national championship and a lot of the news that has been going on around college football. We saw the news, Dante Moore, obviously going back to Oregon yesterday, and Jeff Erickson later on in the show to give some props out for the NFL divisional round.
Yep, I'm excited to talk to our hockey bros here today. kind of, for me, a deep dive, if you will, or a final jump into the pool for the NHL, as I've been watching a little bit more, trying to keep track of it, football calming down, and now we can keep track of everything else going on in the world of sports, and that would include the National Hockey League, because I'm a good team player, and because my compatriot enjoys hockey, and, of course, will be on the sidelines. Is it sidelines? On the rink?
Rinkside.
Then I, too, will keep track of everything going on. Knights with an important one against my MVP.
I feel like you were saying that in a
Austin
way
Matthews.
to slight me and how I am about the NBA, but this is fresh off me just saying I have a bet right now. Neither here nor there. Speaking of hoops, though, we do have a lot to discuss in college basketball on and off the court, especially, I'm sure you've seen the news, but if you haven't, 26 people as of this morning charged in a criminal scheme to fix Division I college basketball and professional Chinese basketball games, according to a 70-page statement. 17 programs, 39 players, 29 games were impacted as fixed or attempted to be fixed. So we will dive into this coming up in the next segment, but it's a doozy.
I feel like you and I, we do have a good bond, and so I feel like we have connected and we share similarities. And so I feel like when I say this next statement, you would probably feel the same way. You ever watched a movie and thought, I could get away with that with better planning?
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. I mean, you're trying to get down over $400,000 on a first half in a game like that. What are we doing? It's an obvious red flag, and that's the whole point. I mean, you're going to get caught with the way you're operating, and sure enough, here we are. These idiots get caught with what they're doing. This is unbelievable, some of the figures that were thrown out there for some of these bets.
Yeah, looking forward to getting into that in a moment, as well as some of just the craziness that happened with upsets last night in college hoops. But we will kick things off in the National Football League, where there is a giant coaching hire pending in New York. Giants and former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh reportedly finalizing an agreement to make him the franchise's next head coach. He spent yesterday over at the Giants training facility, met with leadership, met with Jackson Dart, was initially supposed to head over to Tennessee to visit with the Titans today, maybe the Falcons later on in the week. All those meetings were scrapped, and I don't blame him based on the reports we're seeing about what this contract might be. 5 years, $100 million, reportedly, those numbers, so he gets fired and gets a raise.
Yeah, this was... I think John Harbaugh is a good coach, but this is a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
That's
Andy Reid money.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, Andy Reid, this has been the big criticism of Harbaugh, which to an extent is stupid because he had a good culture over there in Baltimore, but Andy Reid at least calls plays. Mm-hmm. And this is not, of course, what John Harbaugh is going to do here. So charged with the development of our guy Jackson Dart, who, by the way, I haven't brought this up to you yet because the season has ended and I keep forgetting, but you might still be live on your Offensive Rookie of the Year ticket, so we'll see what happens. But charged with this, and look, give Harbaugh credit. Under him, 2 quarterbacks that they took in the first round did take steps forward to be better quarterbacks of their generation, Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. So maybe he can do it as well with Jackson Dart, but at the very end, he's a good coach. Maybe he's worth this money, maybe not. But at the end of the day, you don't really know exactly how these things will work out. These things will work out, but I think you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, and I would say from a betting perspective, we gave you the odds the other day of what the what the Giants' next head coach odds were. And before John Harbaugh was fired, Kevin Stefanski was the favorite. Once he is introduced into the market, immediately becomes a minus 150 favorite. So cash that when this becomes finalized, when all is said and done. And I mean, Harbaugh, and we can throw Mike Tomlin in this too. It's not like they were fired because they're bad coaches. They were fired because they had just, I feel like, after so long and you've done so much, but you're not reaching the ultimate goals that have been put on you. That's what flips the switch, I guess. I always get that mixed up. I know it's very obvious that it switched the flip, but do you ever do that?
Switch the flip.
Flip the switch.
There we go.
But
okay.
See, I even did it on accident once again there. But no, it's not like this thing fell off a cliff with the Ravens.
Right.
He had teams that were made for deep playoff runs, and you have an MVP quarterback that just didn't get to a Super Bowl or what you needed him to get to.
Right, and you look at the way the season's ended, in fact, the last few years. It's been traumatic, to say the least. So I think much like the Las Vegas Raiders out here, the New York Giants and the franchise, if you look over the last few years and the coaches that they have had and what has gone on, I think you're just kind of in desperate need of, as we've been using the phrase, an adult in the room, somebody to at the very least get the trains on the tracks, keep going in the right direction, and at least instill some sort of consistent culture inside of a building that has clearly been lacking it for a long time.
It's the slight to Brian Dable that's saying it without saying it, because I feel like that's the exact phrase that all of these insiders, the Schefters and Ian Rappaport, keep using, is that, okay, you need to establish a set culture here, get an adult in the room. And like that verbiage is not ideal if you're a Brian Dable on the way out.
No, but I think it's also all of these guys, right? I mean, it's funny, you kind of forget because time just goes by and you're so wrapped up in these different seasons. you forget about Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge. I mean, I don't think it's just Dable. It's just that this
last decade.
Yeah, this last decade, the Giants, the executives, and all ownership has allowed this to kind of fester and become something that has been sort of a laughingstock since Tom Coughlin left. And I think that's what you're looking at. It's not specifically just Dable. I think it's what the Giants have allowed to happen with this franchise, which is why you're here at this point.
That said, 7-27 the last 2 years under Dable, who finished 20-40-1 in his tenure. But those four coaches that you mentioned, Dable, Judge, Shurmur, McAdoo, 52-101-1. New York has lost 10-plus games, 8 of their last 10 seasons. Harbaugh's had just 3 losing seasons in 18 years. Yep. So this is a very different type of mindset that you're bringing into this thing. And you mentioned him not being a play caller. Part of at least the reports coming out of this says he would like to bring Todd Monken onto the staff to be his offensive coordinator once again. Worth noting, however, should he be a candidate for the Cleveland Browns job or whatever, like as a head coach, he's interviewed at least for one that he would take the head coaching gig.
Yeah, we'll see if he does. I mean, we'll see if maybe you're just kind of feeling out and looking under every rock if you're some of these coaches, because my rebuttal was going to be, you're so tied to Monken, the fact that you left Baltimore because you were so loyal to him according to some reports, that I don't think he's really a hot commodity, and yet you want to stick by him. So it's going to be big for him to see if he can get something out of Jackson Dart now. And by the way, as somebody has pointed out, do we now teach Jackson Dart that, dude, you got to keep it under wraps? He was caught on the sidelines like a week ago saying, no, it's probably Harbaugh.
Stefanski or Harbaugh. Okay, you hear that music. We got to take our first time out of the day. We will keep tabs on this Grizzlies Magic game as it's set to tip off. But when we come back, seismic news in the college basketball betting world. We will hit on it all when we return here on Money Moves.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Huge news in the college basketball and betting worlds this morning as we welcome you back to the program. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Coming down this morning from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania that the FBI has 26 individuals that have been charged in a point-shaving scheme that involves more than 39 college basketball players on more than 17 Division I teams. That includes 29 and more fixed results per a federal indictment in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, fixed or attempted to be fixed. That is, suspects facing a slew of charges that include bribery in sports, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, aiding and abetting, among others.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into something like this, and obviously they've been tracking this for a long time, a couple of them going back to what we've already heard, as you mentioned. So I think that this was something we were waiting for. We were waiting for more on the college aspect of this. I think we mentioned this when the Norman Powell, the Terry Rozier case came down, which was, we still haven't heard the follow-up on some of these college players that were named. And this seems to be the case in tying into fixing these outcomes to Chinese basketball as well. So you do wonder, as you continue on and you hear some of the jargon coming out of these press conferences, which you're going to hear in a moment, that they're going to continue to kind of pursue any lead, which they should. But you do wonder if there's going to be more coming out of college basketball on some of these lower levels, because we've talked about this last time. You go back to so many times throughout last year or the year before, you get these odd quizzical line moves, these first halves that were getting steamed up 4 or 5, 6 points. There were so many different games that were like that, tied to some of the schools that we had discussed, and now, sure enough, we're getting names tied to them.
And you mentioned Chinese basketball. That is where all of this began back in 2022 when gamblers Shane Hennon and Marvis Fairley targeted and connected with Antonio Blakely, who's a former LSU All-American, former Chicago Bull. He allegedly, agreed to the scheme and to recruit other players to do the same. These individuals then attempted to and succeeded in many instances in fixing Chinese Pro Basketball Association games. David Metcalf, who is the U.S. attorney for the Eastern Eastern District of Pennsylvania, shared an interesting statement on how that then forced the transition to D1 hoops.
The scheme proved lucrative. Mr. Hennon, we allege, texted a Confederate that the only things certain in life were, quote, death, taxes, and Chinese basketball. And they decided.
Okay. Yes, death, taxes, and Chinese basketball. I mean, you always put these kind of things in there to kind of sound more dramatic in the press conferences. What was it? What was it with the Rozier cases? They went back and counted their millions after one of them. But look, this is, especially when it comes to lower level Chinese basketball, things like that. We've talked about this a lot. These markets are monitored for a reason. They're also flagged when you get stupid bets on smaller markets that would not be wagered on outside of bigger markets like the NFL. And that's immediately what gets flagged here. So it was part of it. And we have seen now that they're starting to grab these guys. The college hoops wagers are absolutely ridiculous when you're seeing what exactly they're doing.
And some of the basis of how this scheme, I guess, was formulated is that they were targeting teams that were underdogs in games and finding players that they could encourage to underperform so that the favorites would cover by margin. And so it wasn't necessarily like wins and losses in this. It was based around the spread of these games. And it went from Blakeney in Chinese basketball and recruiting his teammates and other people around the league to then in college hoops, seeing these players and paying them, according to the indictment, $10,000 to $30,000 per game, which then would be bet on in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in that range. Here is Metcalf once again and how some of those specific college basketball players were targeted.
You know, certain players were targeted because they were somewhat missing out on NIL money. And this was being done, they were being targeted so they could supplement their NIL compensation. You know, whether or not they would have done or not done a particular crime based on whether other athletes are being paid or themselves, I don't know. Again, that's the question for policymakers to answer. What I will say is this. You know, we're not going to sit here on the sidelines while this regulatory landscape figures itself out. You know, the Department of Justice is going to step in. You know, as Deputy Director Bailey said, as Special Agent in Charge James said, we're going to step in to combat the corruption of this sport.
And I think that makes sense to an extent, right? Like even in this era of college sports where players can get paid, there are still a lot of players out there that aren't. And the programs in specific that were targeted here are Towson and, UNC, A&T, South Alabama, Northern Kentucky. Like these are the level of programs in a lot of cases that are being angled here. LaSalle in February of 2024, one of the instances specifically, LaSalle players were bribed to underperform in the first half of a home game against St. Bonaventure. The place bets totaled $247,000 to cover the first half spread, which included a $30,000 wager with FanDuel. Like that's kind of how this came to be.
Yeah, that's going to be the books where these were placed is also going to be pretty interesting. And how you accept some of these
That was one, by the way, that lost. So that's worth noting, too. Not all of these ultimately won, but in an attempt to fix.
I mean, all of these, this is from Thamel inside of the indictment. $458,000 the Towson to beat UNC A&T. $424,000 Kent State cover first half against Buffalo. The $275,000 South Alabama to cover the first half spread against Southern Miss. $256,000 Northern Kentucky first half against Robert Morris. $161,000 Louisiana Lafayette Southern Miss first half. What are we doing? I mean, these are things that are going to get flagged and going to be and caught to an extent. And this is, I think, part of the reason why you follow the trail to get to where you get to eventually. Yeah. But that's also part of this is
because it's not like it's a huge top 25 on top 25 game that's taking more volume. It's
a lower level college basketball game and you're taking six figures on a first half. Hello.
Yeah.
You're screamed to the heavens that, hey, I might have something here and we should monitor where this is coming from. And I'm going to be curious to see if we find you mentioned the FanDuel wager where the rest of these are. Mm-hmm.
And this is a 70-page indictment. We got on the air relatively soon after all of this came down. So I'm sure there will be more things that we'll specifically read and that will be uncovered in the coming hours. But there was at least an early statement from NCAA President Charlie Baker where he said, quote, protecting competition integrity is of the utmost importance to the NCAA. We're thankful for law enforcement agencies working to detect and combat integrity issues in match manipulation in college sports. The pattern of college basketball game integrity conduct revealed by law enforcement today is not entirely new information to the NCAA. So he had this statement ready with this expectation that they were going to have this news come down.
And this is a good tweet from David Purdom who put this out there because I know a lot of people are going to go straight to, well, like, see, everything, this is ridiculous. You were listening to a clip from McAfee talking to Thamel. I think the question he had was like, should I be thinking about this when I open my app to bet on these things? from Purdom. There were approximately 12,256 Division I men's games in the past 2 seasons. According to the indictment, 29 were compromised.
And that's not going to help you get your money back if you're on the losing side of any of these things or what have you. But it is worth noting that the sample that has been impacted is significantly small in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely.
Grand scheme of things, that is. Maybe I got caught up in scam.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and it does bring into question as well when you zoom out and we talk about the landscape that is currently out there. As it's been put out, Dustin Gauker does a great job covering a lot of different stuff, including some of the prediction markets. You can find Chinese basketball in prediction markets as well. So, and that is not monitored the same way as you have some of these books. Yeah. So that's going to be another question as to how this is. There's already been some issues in terms of payouts for those too. So this is going to be pretty interesting, what this means and what the trickle-down effect. There's always going to be a trickle-down effect of some sort. And the other aspect, as we had discussed the last time, there was a big push about, hey, player props. Well, these weren't individual player props. These were first halves. These were games. Mm-hmm. So the crusade, if you will, against some of the over-unders when it comes to player props, not the focus of this one.
Yeah, we will, again, keep you updated if there are any changes or new developments as we go here. But I did want to talk at least the last couple minutes of the segment while on the topic of college basketball. We had an awesome night on the court yesterday. Down goes undefeated, number 10 ranked Vandy. Texas wins by 16 at home. Stanford upsets number 14 ranked North Carolina. Ole Miss beats Georgia. Even ASU Arizona. I don't know if anyone is keeping tabs on that, but Arizona, the number 1 ranked team in the country, at home, a 21.5-point favorite against ASU. They were down at the half of that game, had to come back.
Well, I'm sure our boss Steve Cohen was. I believe he's a graduate of Arizona.
On the Wildcats last night.
Eventually got there. In totality, top 25 teams last night, 3-9 against the spread, 3 outright losses. You mentioned them in the first half. They found themselves in dogfights early, 3-8-1 against the spread. Top 25 teams were in the first half. I thought the most intriguing outcomes, we mentioned this one yesterday. Vandy may be caught looking ahead to Florida. They lose outright to that game against Texas. It sets up a really fascinating game because Florida, as we had talked about yesterday, had won 7 out of 8 games. They look like they're playing particularly well. Now you got to go on the road against Vandy. And then BYU does eventually rally, and maybe we could talk about this a little bit later, but A.J. Debonsa again, 25 points, 6 rebounds, 8 of 22 shooting, not as efficient, but a big part of this comeback here for BYU at home. They have won their last 13 games. They're 7-6 against the spread. Man, are we sure that he should only be plus 225 to win the Wooden Award?
I like it.
So we got to talk about that. He's got 10 consecutive games with 20-plus points, 6-plus rebounds. They're 16-1 in the Big 12, and they got a big one coming up this weekend. Yeah,
a big one at Texas Tech, another ranked-on-ranked game out there in the Big 12. That said, we do need to take a quick time out here. Worth noting, though, all of our content each and every day up at vsin.com is unlimited when you're a VSiN Pro subscriber. So you get all of the college basketball stuff along with all of our sports that'll be covered. Right now, with the Super Bowl upon us, we've got a big game 60 deal for you where you can save $60 off your VSiN Pro annual subscription when you use our code MONEY. Become a Pro subscriber. You get the daily best bets, unlimited articles, real-time betting splits, AI-powered prop tools, and so much more. Don't miss out on the big game deal. vsin.com/subscribe. Promo code MONEY to save $60 off that Pro subscription. We got to step aside here, but when we come back, out to the ice we go. Excited to have Nick Alberga, NHL betting and fantasy analyst, in studio with us coming up next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Not the start I'm looking for out there in Berlin as we welcome you back to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Memphis up currently on the Magic, 21-12. Of course, JVT and I laid the 5 with Orlando, so it's a game of runs. We'll get back in this thing. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. No.
He's got an Aaron Andrews coat on.
Oh, no. What are we doing? Enough with this stuff. I'm sure Nick really enjoys the fodder there. Are you a big coat guy?
Not really. I was just going to add, I'm bringing the good vibes because John Morant's name's been linked to the Raptors. I want Anthony Davis the hell away from my Toronto Raptors team. I know you're the guy to talk to about that. Yeah. And happy Kyle Tucker Day, guys. This is a big day for us. And Mitch Marner playing the Leafs for the first time.
Oh, wait, I missed this. Kyle Tucker, did he...
There's stuff out there that he's going to sign somewhere today, and the Blue Jays seem to be the team.
Ooh, okay.
So, I set this up poorly, by the way. Nick Alberga, NHL betting and fantasy analyst, host of Leafs Morning Take, NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast as well. Welcome to the show.
That's a lot more fun.
There.
Thank you.
When I'm sitting here refreshing to see if oh, cool, Grayson Rodriguez for the Angels. So Kyle Tucker going to your team is actually a lot better.
Guys, it's crazy because I cover a lot of sports. I watch a lot of sports. Many people think hockey's my number one, baseball's my number one. I played growing up. So I'm still reeling off this World Series.
Yeah.
It hurt. I never thought in my lifetime we'd get back there after 92 and 93 and obviously see the back-to-back. But to get that close, you can't lead off even tighter to the base. To think of what the Blue Jays have done, I wonder who better to go toe-to-toe again with the Dodgers this year, right?
Yeah. We'll shift gears to baseball. And I didn't realize that you were that into baseball aside from
I like
the
to
Blue
drag
Jays.
her down into the depths of baseball.
So
Good.
but like that's good to know, especially with you like out there in the Toronto. We'll get you on
You
to talk
just
some
assume
baseball.
because of the Canadians, it's just all hockey, huh?
We're big into
That's
baseball.
how I know. That's how we know each other.
Yeah, we're big into base. Like I watch the Blue Jays more than the rest of the league. I used to be in a lot of fantasy keeper leagues in baseball, and it's just too hard to track, man. You're looking 5 years down the road for I can't do it anymore.
I already got a fantasy baseball text today.
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, you guys ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess."
No, I'm not.
Dave Ross, by the way, one of our other hosts here on the program, and he had a Toronto Blue Jays future from the tournament that we did here, and he texted, Kyle Tucker must sign with the Mets today, not the Blue Jays. Please make that happen. Thank you. I'll hang up and listen.
No, I will add too, I was a big Derek Jeter fan growing up, so I hate the New York Mets. I think it would be phenomenal if the New York Mets were left at the altar here, because they've had a disastrous offseason, guys.
Well, that said, let's get to hockey here because that is why you're in town today.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's kind of a big game coming up today.
Isn't there a baseball team coming here? Let's talk about that
eventually. But obviously your Leafs taking on my Golden Knights and Mitch Marner. They're going to see him back for the first time. This is kind of interesting. I was just talking to JVT in the break. This is the first of 2 games in the next 8 days between these two as they're going to make the trip to Toronto coming up next Friday.
I'm curious to see what it's like at T-Mobile tonight, just because like Toronto fans travel really, really well, and you can make a weekend out of things. And there's a lot of animosity for Mitch Marner. I know you guys don't feel it here, but like we're talking about a franchise corner piece that was drafted by the franchise. That's a local product who said, you know what? Not doing this. I'm going to go chill out in Vegas, and taking nothing away from this market. It's not Toronto. In fact, I think you guys have no clue what it's like to be a team so far. I mean, it's 9 seasons and you won a Stanley Cup. The Leafs' last Stanley Cup was in 1967. So they're dying for something. And to see somebody who is a homegrown talent like that leave, rest assured there's a lot of annoyed and pissed off people in that market. And I think it starts tonight. Again, curious with the response. I will add, like Nicole Auerbach, I don't want to forget about him. Stormy, as you know, won the Cup in 2023. Hell of a player. It's tough for him because he's always going to be regarded as that guy who went in the Mitch Marner sign and trade. But I'm really, really intrigued by this game tonight. Obviously, it doesn't help from the Vegas point of view that they played in LA last night, 6 straight wins for them. But I will add the added touch that both teams have been on fire going into this game tonight.
You think the $1.40-ish price a little too much?
No, I think it's fair. I think there's some belief the Leafs are going to come back to reality. As mentioned, Vegas has won 6 in a row. There's talk out there, not confirmed, that Aiden Hill could come back to the lineup tonight for Vegas, their number 1 goaltender, which is huge. And the Maple Leafs have been playing out of their mind for the last 10 games, right? They lose in Utah, and we expect a bit of a response. But I actually, looking at those numbers there, I actually think there's more value in the Maple Leafs tonight because, yeah, it's all about Mitch Marner, but you don't think Nicole Auerbach wants this game coming back to the place where he won a Stanley Cup. Austin Matthews, Marner's the one, a center on this team now. So like taking faceoffs against his buddy Matthews. And I think the Maple Leafs will show up for this game. Like if I had to pinpoint it right now, I wouldn't be shocked that there's overtime tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned how well they've been playing 8-0-2 the last 10 prior to that loss to the Mammoth earlier this week. I wanted to ask specifically about Austin Matthews in that though, because he has looked like poor thing.
That was my only future that I put.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I needed a hockey bet. I was like, let's go Matthews over 90.5 points in MVP. Let's do this thing.
Tough start. But he's been awesome the last couple weeks.
He has. And another polarizing player in this market. If I were to tell you like 3 weeks ago, this guy looked like there was a piano on his back, like literally, you would have been like, no way watching this guy tonight. I don't know what happened over the 3-day holiday break, but he looks like a different player. I was right there with you. I didn't, go with the Hart Trophy extent, but I thought for sure, like this guy pound for pound is the best goal scorer on the planet. But Nathan McKinnon is on pace for like 70 goals this year. It's not attainable from the Matthews perspective, but I think if you're trying to play an anytime goal tonight, I think that's a pretty safe bet. It's a couple He's been on fire the last little while. I think 7 goals in his last 7 outings. So always great to see. And he, inspired by playing his buddy Mitch Marner too. I think we could see an Austin Matthews anytime goal tonight.
Zooming out on Vegas, outside of just the market, the team itself, I keep telling her, in hoops, obviously, in such a large sample size sport, point differential is always pretty good. It's a good indicator of what you are. This team has 22 wins, 56 points, and yet they're only +9 in goal differential. I keep calling them a fake good team. Is that true?
I think injuries are a part of this. Okay. There's a reason why Mitch Marner is playing center, right? Guys are hurt. And I think we're at a point in time, especially with this division, Vegas is going to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's about getting healthy. In fact, I like the futures look on Vegas right now. I think the biggest question for me is their crease. Carter Hart's banged up right now. Aiden Hill, as mentioned, could come back tonight. Kira Schmid was really good in that win last night against the Los Angeles Kings. But I think in terms of sheer talent, Vegas is equipped to go far. I think standing in their way is obviously going to be Colorado, Dallas, the Edmonton Oilers, specifically here in the Pacific Division. But I could easily see this team make a run. I like their blue line. They're big, they're strong, they're mobile. Health. I mean, you can make that case with a lot of teams in this league.
They are the second shot in the Western Conference right now, +425. The Avs, though, +150.
They're good.
They're +270 to win it all. Yeah, I mean, can they be stopped in the West?
I would say my motto is when betting on the NHL, I always fade the President's Trophy winner. They never win. If you guys recall 2 years ago, the Boston Bruins had this epic regular season. They lost in the first round. Mind you, it was against the Florida Panthers who started this epic journey to back. So I think I would actually fade Colorado in the second half of the season, more so in the Stanley Cup playoffs, because more times than not, the data is not on their side. We'll say that.
Is Edmonton worth adding? Because she's covered it. They're slow starters, but they obviously still have McDavid. They're still a very good team. I would think that they're probably worth investing in at some point.
Another one of those teams that it's more about what they do in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I'm so fascinated by this Hart Trophy debate. Like, I think McKinnon's going to win it. But Connor McDavid, it's like the LeBron fatigue in the NBA. He is so damn good. Go look at his numbers the last little while, taking nothing away from McKinnon, who, again, if he gets to 65, 70 goals, he's winning this thing. But McDavid's probably going to get 30 or 40 more points than the closest person and probably still lose his award because of the fatigue. But in general, I do like the Oilers. Again, like most teams, the crease, they pick up Tristan Jarry. He's back healthy. If they can get a save in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I'd watch out for that team.
McDavid 5-1 right now for the Rocket Richard, for the Hart. He's +425. McDavid -300 for the Hart Trophy right now. So.
I'm sorry, remind me, what's Richard? Most points?
Goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, like, I bet that preseason future on him to have 40+, and I was not feeling good at the beginning of the season. And he's turned it on. It's been nice.
I'm not going to hit you with the George Mikan trophy.
Apologies.
I'm going to say most improved.
We do have 10 games coming up on the full card today, and there are a couple bets I know that you did play. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Columbus again. I like the new coach bump. It's my fascination, too, that like a league that's just been so eager to fire their coaches this year. We wait till early January, and it's Columbus coming out of nowhere to bring 70-year-old Rick Bowness out of retirement. So I'm going to play them again. They won the other night against the Calgary Flames. They pretty good in that game, and I expect the bump to continue in this one. And I would look at a bounce back of sorts for Montreal, Buffalo on the back-to-back. I've been playing the Sabres quite a bit. I think there's a lot of value in that team. Maybe you look at a OT in that game, but I think Montreal finds a way to bounce back in that one against Buffalo Sabres tonight.
I'm for it. Final prediction for tonight, though?
I think overtime. Again, if you want to play Mitch Marner and you're looking for the revenge aspect, you look at an assist at least. Nicole Auerbach, if you want to look for value, maybe an anytime goal. I covered a game a couple weeks ago. Scott Lawton of the Maple Leafs returned to Philadelphia. It was like +400. I hit him to score that anytime goal. So there are various ways and routes to go with the revenge angle tonight, but I think it's really close between Vegas and Toronto tonight.
If you do think we need extra hockey, +300 on that regulation draw. So we'll see if we get there. Are you going to the Sphere tomorrow?
I think I might go watch Zach Brown tomorrow. Yeah,
I think you
should. I'll be honest, Stormy, like I had a unique experience doing the draft a couple years ago where my neck was like that the whole night, and it really, really swayed my opinion on the Sphere.
Just sit up higher and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Nick Alberga, everybody, check out all the work. Leafs Morning Take, the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast, all that great stuff. We got to step aside here. Back next with more on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're just 5 days away from the college football playoff national championship out there in Miami. Excited for a fun one. Miami and Indiana going head to head as we welcome you back here to Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And excited to break down this game and a whole lot more in the college sports world as Nicole Auerbach joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, lead college football insider over at NBC Sports, SiriusXM college sports radio host, also for NBC, covers college hoops, swimming. I also saw the announcement you're going to be covering the Winter Olympics with cross-country skiing and ski jumping. So no days off for you here in the near future, Nicole.
No, there's not. At least I need to kind of package the warmth that we'll have in Miami before I go to Italy and live on a ski slope. But yes, I'm currently trying to pack for very different climates over the next month.
All right, well, let's start with this game that we're going to see. And so I've been calling Indiana UConn from a few years ago where they romped through the NCAA tournament, beat everybody by a bajillion points, and there was really no stopping them. Can this be that? Can this gap be between Indiana and Miami that large, or are we getting this wrong as they are 8.5-point favorites here in this game?
I mean, I think that they're going to win by more than that, yes. This is a team that's just leaving no doubt right now. They didn't have that many close games in the regular season or in the Big Ten championship game until they played the really good teams and the teams with, that NFL talent. Those were the teams that they couldn't come close to a year ago. And now they're able and confident and beating teams like that, but they're beating them by a lot more. I mean, you obviously saw the drastic improvement where they were from the first time they beat Oregon to where they were when they blew them out in Atlanta. I was at that game last week. I mean, it was stunning. And obviously you don't want to spot them 14 points either if you're Oregon, but Indiana's offensive line is so much better than it was earlier this season. Fernando Mendoza, so much better than he was earlier this season. They've got Charlie Becker emerging. I forget 7 catches for the first half of the year for Indiana. Now he's a home run threat for them. And then the defense finally getting its due and people are realizing how good it is. So they just don't have any weaknesses. I've spent the last, 6 weeks since Selection Sunday, previewing matchups, talking about Indiana. They don't have any weaknesses. And I'm stealing Dan Lanning's post-game thoughts after the Peach Bowl where he said that. He was they run the ball well, they throw the ball well, they stop other teams from running it, they stop other teams from passing it, and they're good on special teams. They have no weaknesses. So yeah, I am expecting them to cover that 8.5 points. I just think they're the best team in college football, and they don't beat themselves. They haven't lost a fumble since the first game of the year. When Fernando Mendoza throws a pick, he makes up for it. They learned throughout the game. Miami's going to have to be perfect and be really clean, which they're not always, as we saw with 10 penalties last time out and 4 dropped interceptions. So they're going to have to be really clean, and I think Carson Beck's going to have the game of his life for them to have a shot at this. So, I know that's not super exciting for people who are excited about the game, but I do think it's going to be kind of a coronation for Indiana.
And an Indiana team that has the potential to have a perfect 16-0 season, capped with a national championship. And you mentioned how much you've been covering Indiana. You recently had a sit down with the guy at the center of it all in head coach Curt Cignetti, who is a very interesting person and coach, and what he has done to lead this team to the historic success that they're having this year. Was there anything in particular that really stood out from that conversation that you took away or you walked away from that conversation with?
Yeah, I just think he is so even keel at all times. And I know people have made all the memes about how he's super grumpy, and then Fernando Mendoza is the world's most positive person who gets excited about everything. And they're this hilarious little odd couple. It's kind of true. But Sig is not necessarily grumpy. He's just the same all the time. So, I would talk to him a lot. We had a lot of Indiana games on NBC or Peacock, so we just kind of catch up those weeks. And it was always the same keys to games. Yes, there were specific matchups or specific things that they were trying to do in their games, but he always felt if they executed the way that they were able to, then they would always have a chance. And so to him, he always focuses on a lack of pre-snap penalties, right? Because you control that completely. So you see him getting pissed off on a sideline, even though they're winning games, because it's a false start. And he can't believe that they have false starts, right? Because they don't have them very often, or any penalties. So it's like a lot of the little things that are just so consistent across the board. Like there's such a good tackling team. And I remember thinking about that on New Year's Day because, you're watching these other quarterfinal games and obviously there's great athleticism in a bunch of places, but you're just watching like all of these missed tackles. And my colleague at NBC Sports, Joshua Perry, every single time there's one, he texts and he goes, I'm opening a tackling school because like there were just so many, just missed tackles, broken tackles that really didn't need to be. And he was a linebacker at Ohio State. So like that just drives him insane. And Indiana doesn't do that. Like they're always prepared. So they're in the right places and you don't really see blown coverage ever with them, but they also tackle really well. They tackle in space, and they're always in the backfield, like, with the run game and pressuring quarterbacks. Like, it's just like a very clean team. And so you can just tell that when you talk to Sig, that like all of those are the little things that he is just constantly harping on and focused on. And it just doesn't change. And it kind of explains why, like, they have not ever, been in a moment that was like too big for them because like they were just so, it's just such a repetition of exactly how it is day in and day out. It didn't matter, after they beat Illinois and they, it was a top 10 opponent and like they blew them out and it sort of changed people's perception of Indiana. It didn't change after they beat Ohio State and the Big Ten championship. Like they're very much the same day over day. And it really starts with him because he just does not get very high. He does not get very low. We do know that he will smile. He will have a celebratory beer, but like, in game, he feels like he needs to be that even like if I'm having my guys do 150 reps of this and be the same, I need to be the same every snap as well.
How does his compatriot Mario Cristobal compare? I've always said that Cristobal is a coach that doesn't really add wins at the margins with the decision making. I think we saw a little bit of that when he didn't go for 2 at the end of that game against Ole Miss. But what have you made of the job Cristobal has done up to this point?
Yeah, the only way to change that perception of like being a bad in-game manager is to manage games well. And I thought that, with he and Carson Beck, I saw all of the jokes online as they, get the ball with the final drive to try to win the game, being like, oh yeah, I really trust Mario Cristobal and Carson Beck to go do this. And you know what? Mario Cristobal and Carson Beck went out there and did it, right? So you can only really change that perception by being in big games and not screwing up, and not costing yourself time or field position or whatever based on a coaching decision. So I think he's done a pretty good job of changing that narrative, or at least putting them in position to do that and not costing them opportunities over the course of the college football playoff. I mean, if you talk to Miami fans, I think they're more frustrated that with Shannon Dawson and some of the play calling offensively when they should just be like, hey, we trust our offensive line. Let's run the ball. Let's like, kind of stay with like who we are and what's working. And then you see gadget plays and trick plays and Malachi Toney trying to throw a touchdown. You're like, why are we doing this? Right. Like that's what Miami fans get frustrated with more right now. But no, I think, this has been huge for Mario Cristobal. I mean, that's why he came back to Miami to try to build Miami back up among the nation's elite. And so I think, the in-game piece is going to be something that's going to continue to follow him unless, we get through, all these big games and series of years and suddenly we haven't talked about it a lot. And then all of a sudden we're like, all right, Mario Cristobal is not going to cost his team, points or opportunities in big moments. But in the most part, I mean, he's doing exactly what he set out to do here at Miami. I mean, he built this roster from the line of scrimmage out, and that is their identity. That's such a focal point of how they got here in the first place. So, I think he feels really good about what they're building. He's definitely more of an emotional coach as we talk about in-game and sideline demeanor. But, he's done an incredible job. He's pushed the right button so far.
Nicole, we've only got about 90 seconds left with you, but with the news that came down yesterday that Dante Moore is going to stay at Oregon, what was your initial reaction to that? And does that immediately make Oregon a national contender once again next year?
It definitely does. It shows that they're locked and loaded for next year. And it's going to be fascinating to watch, the situation with Dylan Raiola as the backup quarterback. It's a place that's done it, right? Dante was behind Dylan Gabriel for a year before he started. But I like the decision to prioritize development and making sure that he feels that he is the best quarterback possible before he goes pro. I don't think everyone would do that, especially if you were potentially going to be the number 2 overall pick. So I love it for Oregon, love it for Dan Lanning. They're bringing back a bunch of key defensive players, offensive players as well. Like Evan Stewart finally back. So they're going to be a lot of fun. And they had a really bitter taste to end this season that I'm sure will motivate them. And then it just creates a wild quarterback class for the NFL draft. So I'm excited to watch NFL folks try to figure out who QB2 and QB3 are in this class.
Oh, man, we were already having the discussion yesterday, so you're reading our minds here. Nicole, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. And safe travels out to Miami. Enjoy Natty Weekend.
Absolutely. See you soon, Stormy.
See you out there, girl. Nicole Auerbach, again, doing great work over there, NBC Sports, lead college football insider, and she does so much for the network now. I like what she was saying, though, about having to pack. Got Miami this week, and then I'm going out to the frozen tundra.
It's quite the docket in terms of travel.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot.
I'm not jealous.
We got to step aside here real quickly. Thank you to Nicole and Nick Alberga for joining us this hour. We've got a couple more great guests coming up, though, in hour 2 that you won't want to miss. VSiN's own Jonathan Davis breaking down the 10-game hockey card we have on deck. Jeff Erickson as well from an NFL prop perspective with the divisional round upon us. But we've got NBA on our screen now and a big slate coming up this evening as well. Talking hoops next on Money Moves.